Have you ever noticed how some people seem to alter the atmosphere of a room without uttering a single word? They don't raise their voices. They don't demand attention. They simply withdraw, and somehow the energy changes. The tension adjusts, people grow uneasy, conversations falter. Their silence has gravity. Now imagine if you could do that. Imagine if instead of reacting to every message, every provocation, every emotional tug, you simply chose stillness. Not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of power. What would happen then? This is where the real transformation begins. Most people live in constant reaction. To opinions, to demands, to noise. They respond before they reflect. They seek connection before they seek peace. They've been conditioned to equate presence with worth. Be available, be responsive, be agreeable. But this conditioning has a cost, and then the price is your power. When you are always accessible, people stop listening. When you always explain, people stop asking. When you always react, people stop respecting. The world doesn't reward noise. It responds to presence. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Every impulsive reaction, every need to defend or justify, is the unconscious controlling you. It's your unhealed patterns using your voice as their weapon. But silence, unconscious silence, is rebellion against that programming. It's the refusal to let the world decide your rhythm. Because silence unsettles those who depend on your reaction for validation. It confuses those who expect your availability. It exposes manipulation by removing the emotional fuel that feeds it. Silence is not absence. Silence is focus. It's the moment your attention, once scattered across others' expectations, turns inward and begins to rebuild you. In that withdrawal, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice. You notice how much of your life has been consumed by explaining yourself. You notice how quickly you apologize for existing. You notice how others' chaos becomes your burden, and slowly, you stop. That stillness, uncomfortable at first, soon transforms into strength. The kind of strength that doesn't shout. The kind that commands respect through self-control. The kind that shifts the power dynamic entirely. Because when you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. So here's the question. What would happen if today, you decided to say nothing? Not as a weapon, not as a withdrawal from life, but as a declaration of sovereignty. Because true power doesn't announce itself. It emanates quietly, from those who no longer need to prove anything. From the moment we are born, we are trained to react. A cry brings comfort. A smile earns approval. A mistake brings correction. Slowly we learn that survival means responding to the expectations of others. And somewhere along that process, silence becomes uncomfortable, even dangerous. That's how emotional dependency begins. You believe your value lies in your reactions. How quickly you reply, how patiently you listen, how much you give. The modern world reinforces this illusion. Notifications, instant replies, the endless chase for validation disguised as connection. But underneath it all, something darker grows. The fear of being forgotten if you stop responding. This is the human trap. Confusing accessibility with worth. You begin to perform instead of live. You rush to answer before you reflect. You apologize before you've even done anything wrong. Because deep down, you've been taught that your silence equals rejection, that if you don't speak, you disappear. But here's the truth. This constant reaction isn't connection. It's control. When you react immediately to every emotion, every criticism, every demand, you're no longer living consciously. You've become predictable, programmable. Carl Jung described this false self as the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, loved, recognized. It's the version of you that says, "I'm fine," while suffocating. It smiles when it wants to scream. It gives when it's already empty. And it's this mask that keeps you trapped in endless reaction. Your emotions are powerful, but when they're unexamined, they're not your allies. They're levers others can pull. One word, one look, one guilt-laced sentence, and you surrender your peace without even realizing it. The tragedy is that most people never see this happening. They think being emotionally available is kindness. They mistake exhaustion for empathy, over-explanation for honesty. They call it love, but it's really fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing people, fear of being invisible. But visibility built on reaction is not presence, it's performance. And so you give and give and give until your energy becomes currency for everyone else's comfort. And in return, you receive silence. Not the kind that heals, but the kind that hollows. This is why you feel drained without knowing why. Why you lie awake replaying conversations, defending yourself in imaginary arguments. You're not tired because you've done too much. You're tired because you've given too much of yourself where it was never valued. So the next time you feel the impulse to react, pause. Don't reply. Don't explain. Don't fix. That single moment of awareness, that space between impulse and response, is where power begins to return to you. Because the world has enough noise. What it's missing is people who know how to be still. Every time you react, you spend energy. Not metaphorically, literally. Jung called it psychic energy, the invisible current that fuels thought, emotion, creation, and consciousness. Every word you speak, every argument you engage in, every inner replay of a painful memory consumes that current. But most of us move through life with the faucet wide open. We leak energy through anger that solves nothing, through endless explanations to people who never listen, through trying to fix what was never ours to fix. Every reaction, every unnecessary defense, every late-night rumination is energy slipping away. Think of it like a battery, not one that recharges overnight, but one that weakens every time you give yourself away emotionally. You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep, but because you spent the night negotiating with ghosts in your head, defending your worth to people who aren't even present, and then you go out into the world, already empty, and wonder why even small things irritate you, why you can't focus, why joy feels foreign. It's not burnout, it's energy debt. Jung wrote that which you resist persists. Every reaction to provocation, every attempt to control or prove, binds you to the very thing you want to escape. The more you resist, the more power it takes from you. When you react to criticism, you hand your peace to someone else. When you rush to justify yourself, you hand them your authority. When you over-explain your truth to those committed to misunderstanding you, you hand them your time, your most sacred resource. And the people who thrive on chaos know this. They don't need to shout or manipulate directly. They just need to trigger your reaction, because that's how they feed. They survive off your emotional electricity. And as long as you keep reacting, you keep supplying them. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming conscious. Power is not loud. It's precise. You can still feel deeply, love intensely, and care fiercely, but from awareness, not compulsion. Every moment you pause instead of reacting, you reclaim energy that would have been wasted. Every silence is a deposit back into your own power. Over time, this builds presence, the kind that doesn't need to prove, persuade, or perform. True strength isn't measured by how much you endure. It's measured by how little you waste. So the next time you feel the familiar pull to respond, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? If not, let silence answer for you. Because silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something is transforming inside you. There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when you realize that reacting hasn't changed anything. You've explained yourself 100 times, argued your truth, defended your worth, and yet the noise continues. That's when something inside you begins to shift. The impulse to speak starts to fade, replaced by a strange calm. You are not giving up. You are waking up. This is the beginning of conscious withdrawal. Withdrawal doesn't mean running away from the world. It means stepping back from the illusions that have kept you entangled. It's an act of awareness, a moment when you stop chasing validation and start observing. Jung called this the beginning of individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, authentic, and undivided within yourself. The world tells you that being unavailable is selfish, that distance is coldness, that silence is arrogance. But the truth is the opposite. Withdrawal is the only way to see clearly. When you step out of the noise, you begin to hear the quiet voice that's been buried under everyone else's expectations. Your own. In conscious withdrawal, you learn to discern what truly deserves your energy. You begin to notice how often you've spoken just to fill silence, helped just to feel worthy, reacted just to be seen, and then you stop. Not out of bitterness, but from clarity. This moment feels uncomfortable. You'll be misunderstood. People will ask, what's wrong? They'll sense the change, your absence from their drama, your refusal to feed familiar patterns. They'll call it detachment, but it's actually discipline. You are learning to hold your power. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Conscious withdrawal is precisely that, pulling back your energy from the unconscious cycles that have ruled you. It's deciding that not every fight deserves your attention, not every message deserves an answer, not every feeling deserves expression. You start to realize that silence is not empty. It's space, the fertile ground where transformation begins. The more you withdraw, the more your inner world becomes vivid. Thoughts sharpen, emotions settle. You begin to sense your own presence again, not as a reaction to others, but as a state of being. This is not isolation. This is preparation. You are not disappearing. You are returning. Returning to your own rhythm, your own breath, your own power. Because in the end, you were never meant to be everywhere for everyone. You were meant to be whole, for yourself. When you finally begin to withdraw, the world around you shifts, almost violently. People who once relied on your instant responses, your constant presence, your predictable empathy, they start to panic. Not because you've done something wrong, but because the mirror they used to project their emotions onto has gone still. This is the mirror effect. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." But most people never look in that mirror. They prefer to use others, and especially the emotionally available ones, as their reflection. They need someone to absorb their noise, to validate their chaos, to carry the weight of what they refuse to face. And you've been that person. The emotional translator, the healer, the constant presence. Your availability made them comfortable, predictable, safe. But when you withdraw, the dynamic collapses. Suddenly your silence becomes unbearable. They start asking questions, provoking reactions, creating drama. Anything to make you break the silence and return to your old self. What you're witnessing isn't their anger. It's their fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of confronting themselves. Because when you stop reacting, the spotlight turns inward. And most people can't stand their own reflection. You'll see it clearly once you step back. The guilt messages, you've changed. The accusations, you're cold now. The manipulation disguised as concern. Are you okay? You're not like before. But all of these are just strategies to pull you back into their emotional orbit, to make you predictable again. This is the test of your awakening. Because silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the exposure of truth. Your withdrawal strips away illusions, revealing who truly values your essence and who only valued your function. It hurts at first. The emptiness feels heavy. The relationships that fall away feel like losses. But they aren't losses, they're revelations. You're not losing people, you're losing patterns. And in that loss, you gain something extraordinary: clarity. You begin to see who can meet you in stillness, who respects your boundaries, who values your presence without demanding your reaction. The mirror effect doesn't just show you others. It shows you yourself, the parts of you that once needed to be needed, that once equated chaos with connection. But now your stillness speaks louder than any argument. Because when you stop dancing to others' rhythm, you begin to hear the music of your own soul. The moment you withdraw, the noise outside quiets, but the noise inside begins. At first, silence feels like peace. Then slowly it starts to ache. You question your decision. You wonder if you've become distant, cruel, or selfish. The mind whispers, maybe they were right about you. This is the battle within. It's not fought with words or weapons. It's fought with memories, guilt, and echoes of old conditioning. Since childhood, you were taught that being good meant being available, that love meant sacrifice, that silence was rejection. So when you choose distance, every cell in your body screams rebellion against those lessons. You feel torn between what you've always done, right? Please respond, comfort, and what you now know you must do. Protect, pause, observe. But guilt is not truth. Guilt is a shadow, a remnant of your old self still trying to survive in your new awareness. It's the echo of every moment you were told your worth depends on others' comfort. And like all shadows, it fades when faced with light. That light is self-understanding. Carl Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And this is where becoming begins. When you sit in your silence long enough, something remarkable happens. The loneliness transforms. It stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like purification. At first, solitude feels like emptiness. Then slowly it becomes a container, a sacred space where your real voice begins to echo again. You start to hear your own thoughts without interference. You start to feel emotions that aren't borrowed. You begin to recognize yourself, the unfiltered version, the one buried beneath roles and expectations. But this phase is not easy. You'll feel misunderstood. You'll miss the old patterns, even the toxic ones, because they felt familiar. You'll crave the comfort of chaos. But if you resist that urge, you will notice something subtle. Clarity entering where confusion once lived. This is rebirth, and it's quiet. There's no applause, no announcement, just the sound of your breath sinking with your truth again. You begin to realize that solitude isn't the absence of connection. It's the restoration of it. It's where you stop chasing the echo of others and finally hear your own. So when the guilt comes, let it. When the loneliness knocks, open the door. They are not enemies. They are midwives to your becoming. Because the self cannot be found in noise. It is born in silence. There comes a moment in your journey when silence stops being a defense and becomes a declaration. You no longer withdraw to escape. You withdraw to govern. The energy that once leaked into endless explanations, justifications, and emotional storms now moves differently. It gathers. It strengthens. It becomes a quiet current under your skin, calm, focused, magnetic. This is sovereignty, the state of ruling your own energy. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires integrating the opposites within you, strength and softness, presence and withdrawal, noise and silence. Now you are living that integration. You've stopped chasing balance. You've become it. Silence is no longer passive. It's your chosen response, your conscious act of power. When you speak now, it's deliberate. When you stay silent, it's strategic. The same stillness that once made you doubt yourself now commands attention, because people can feel it. They sense the difference between silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from knowing. One is avoidance, the other is authority. And authority doesn't shout. It simply is. When you enter a room now, you don't need to assert yourself. The absence of your old patterns does the talking. Your energy no longer seeks approval. It anchors itself. The world begins to mirror this shift. Conversations change. People lower their voices. Even chaos seems to pause around you, but make no mistake, this isn't about dominance. It's about alignment. You no longer leak your energy into every conflict, every insecurity, every demand for validation. You hold it close as something sacred. Carl Jung said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside wakes." This is what awakening feels like. When your silence becomes the voice of your inner order, you start to realize how precious attention really is, how giving someone your presence is the purest form of power. Not everyone deserves it. Not every situation earns it. And the more selective you become, the more magnetic you grow. Paradoxically, the less you speak, the more others listen. The less you chase, the more things move toward you. Because silence, when rooted in awareness, becomes gravity. This is the transformation, when you no longer live as a reaction, but as a force. Your calm becomes contagious. Your presence becomes protection. Your silence becomes your statement. And in that stillness, something miraculous happens. You realize that you never lost control. You had only forgotten it was yours all along. At the end of every transformation, there is silence, but this time it doesn't ache, it hums. It feels like standing in a cathedral built from your own bones. Hearing the echo of your heartbeat is something sacred. You've come home to yourself. This is the final liberation. You are no longer reacting to the world. The world reacts to you. You're no longer accessible to chaos, emotional vampires, or the ghosts of who you used to be. You've reclaimed the rarest currency in existence, your energy. And now, you Tao, begin to live by a new truth. Availability is not love, alignment is. You see, true wholeness isn't about isolating yourself. It's about being so full within that nothing external can shake your peace. You move differently now. You speak when it matters. You disappear when it doesn't. You give from overflow, not from emptiness. People will still misunderstand you. Some will call you distant, others cold. But that's only because they can no longer reach you where you used to bleed. And that's okay, because you're not here to be understood. You're here to be free. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that's what you've done. You've stripped away every false identity built on validation, every apology disguised as kindness, every mask you wore just to be accepted. What's left is essence, raw, sovereign, unshakable. You've learned the ultimate paradox. Detachment doesn't mean you care less. It means you care correctly. You no longer give your peace as payment for belonging. You no longer sacrifice your center to be seen. You've become the calm in the storm. You've become the silence that commands the room. You've become whole, and therefore, untouchable. And now, your task is simple, but sacred. Protect this version of yourself. The world will try to pull you back into noise. Don't go. The past will whisper your old name. Don't answer, because you are no longer that person. You are not the echo. You are the source. If this journey spoke to your soul, if you felt the pull to reclaim your energy, to step into your power and to live with emotional sovereignty, then this space is for you. Welcome to the Echoes of Healing, where we explore the unseen, the psychological, and the sacred. Subscribe now, not for noise, but for awakening. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a mirror for your evolution. Remember, you are not broken. You are becoming, and this silence is your beginning.